So, Scott, last week we talked about Marvel releasing two movies that performed pretty well over the summer. So, there was online chatter, though, despite that Marvel was in trouble. Can you explain that?
Well, a lot of it is just people trying to make a mountain out of a molehill. I think pretty much all of Marvel's quote unquote box office problems are related to the films not playing in China and Russia, which in a 3, 4 years ago, that would have been good for another 120 to 160 million in global grosses. Uh, Doctor Strange: The Multiverse of Madness made 955. If you throw in China and Russia, that's around $1.1 billion, and I don't think anybody would be saying, "Oh no, it's a bomb because it didn't top $1 billion" or whatever nonsense you're hearing. Same thing with Thor: Love and Thunder. The Thor Ragnarok made 854 in worldwide in 2017. You take away China and Russia, that's 712 million. Now, Thor: Love and Thunder, which again did not play in Russia and China, has made 750 million worldwide. So, in quote unquote like for like market comparisons, it's outgrossed Thor Ragnarok in North America and worldwide. And there's
So,
not a lot of part fours. There's not a lot of franchises at all that you have four installments that came out relatively, you know, it's not like a 10, 20-year gap for a legacy sequel or whatever, where you had part one, and then part two made more money, part three made more money, and then part four made more money. If John Wick Chapter 4 makes a little bit more money than John Wick Chapter 3, Lionsgate will be pretty happy.
and obviously these movies aren't playing in Russia because of Russia's war on Ukraine, but can you elaborate on why they're not playing in China?
A lot of that is speculation, but they have not been given approval in China. And considering some of the frankly goofy reasons that we've heard, like for example, allegedly Spider-Man No Way Home did not play in China because there were too many shots of the Statue of Liberty in the film's climax. Now, my unofficial opinion is that they just don't want Marvel movies in China, whether it's because they want to stick it to Disney or because they don't want the competition. Whatever the reason is, it's not happening. They haven't played a movie in China since Spider-Man Far From Home earned a terrific 199 million in China in the summer of 2019, and that helped that film get to 1.13 billion worldwide. Now that 199 total was a 71% bump from what Spider-Man Homecoming earned in 2017. That same summer, the Avengers Endgame earned a record for a Hollywood movie, 620 million in China alone. That was a 71% bump from Avengers Infinity War and was single-handedly responsible for Avengers Endgame making just enough worldwide to temporarily crawl past Avatar at the global box office. But then in early 2021, Avatar was re-released in China, earned another 55 million in China, and took the global crown back.
Black Panther, Captain Marvel, and Spider Man Far From Home soaring past this 1 billion threshold, you believe gave the expectation that every other MCU movie was going to beat that. Do you think, why can other MCU movies surpass this number? Is it solely because they're not playing in China?
Well, I think that variable is a factor. When you're 100 million off, you're 100 million off. The other thing is, prior to Black Panther, there was a ceiling for Marvel movies that did not feature Spider-Man and did not feature Iron Man. And that ceiling was, as of late 2017, the $869 million gross of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. That included about 100, 115 in China. And that was considered a full-blown breakout sequel because everybody loved the first Guardians of the Galaxy. So it boggles my mind that people are looking at Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, and people like Doctor Strange, but I don't think it was held up as one of the great ones. It was a solid picture, and it made 677 million worldwide in 2016. Now you take away China and Russia, that's I think 585, give or take. So you had a 71% jump in like for like market share, market grosses between Doctor Strange 1 and Doctor Strange 2. Any other franchise on earth would soil their britches to get a 71% jump in global grosses.
But for Marvel, it's just not enough, it seems.
Well, I think one of the big problems is that the way Marvel is discussed now versus the way it was even 3 or 4 years ago, they're not the underdog anymore.
Mhm.
They're not the scrappy little engine that could. They've taken over pop culture as we know it. They're basically the closest thing we have to a theatrical and television monoculture, to the extent that it's something that everybody participates in. Um, I think the television shows create the illusion that there's too much Marvel out there. Most general audiences see the movies, but they don't watch all the TV shows. Just in the same way, most comic book fans, just because you say you're a Marvel fan, doesn't mean you read every single Marvel comic book that releases week in and week out. The people make subjective choices about what they're interested in. But if you're a media pundit or you're a critic or you're somebody in the industry, you basically have to watch all of this stuff, whether you want to or not, relatively soon after they premiere on a weekly basis. So to you, yes, you might be suffering from Marvel overload because you have to watch the stuff, whether you like Moon Knight or not.
You wrote for Forbes that you believe that Marvel now faces the same challenges that DC faced. Can you elaborate on that?
Yes. One of the biggest advantages that Marvel had when they started in 2008, all the way up through 2011, 2012, was that comic book films, superhero comic book films, were expected to earn a lot less money than they are now. Iron Man started with 585 million worldwide. That was less than Mamma Mia. That was less than Kung Fu Panda that same summer. That was less than Will Smith's original Hancock that summer, which made $625 million worldwide. Even going into 2011, Thor was considered an unmitigated hit, earning $449 million worldwide. Captain America, the First Avenger, earned $376 million, which back then was an unmitigated hit. And they got extra credit just because, wow, a movie with the word America in the title did so well overseas. That's terrific. Um, Now, to put that on par, that was about what Star Trek did. That was about what Batman Begins did. That was about what Tron earned. And that's about what Superman Returns earned. So, comic book superhero films, unless they were about Spider-Man or unless they featured Wolverine, were not expected to, earn a gazillion dollars. But then the Avengers comes along, makes 1.5 billion worldwide, and the game gets changed. Now you have Man of Steel that is expected to, and frankly, I think Warner Brothers, the various executives at Warner Brothers at the time made a terrible mistake by saying publicly, "Oh, we expect Harry Potter numbers." That's a paraphrase. They said, it's going to perform about on par with the Harry Potter films. Even if you're not looking at Deathly Hallows Part 2, which made 1.3 billion worldwide in 2011, pretty much every Harry Potter film made between 850 and 950 million dollars worldwide. So that puts a target on the back of Man of Steel's back. So when it only makes 668 million dollars, along with mixed reviews, divisive reception among general audience, and massive front loading, that creates the impression that the film is a disappointment and not the proverbial Iron Man or Batman Begins that they wanted out of the gate.
Do you think that these franchises, both MCU and DC, have changed the industry forever?
Yes. I think the films that Disney and Universal, Jurassic, Fast and Furious, Minions, released over the last 7 years have normalized the notion of the billion-dollar grosser. So now people that frankly don't know often people that don't know what they're talking about expect every big movie to automatically make $1 billion, even if there's no good reason to expect that off the cuff. The Batman didn't need to gross $1 billion. Doctor Strange, the Multiverse of Madness didn't need to gross $1 billion. Wonder Woman 84, I would argue, was never going to make $1 billion. The first one made 817 million, or excuse me, 821 worldwide. The sequel was almost always going to make less in North America, maybe more overseas, with a global gross basically on par with the first film. That's what we often see in sequels that aren't breakout sequels, like Kingsman, the Golden Circle, Star Trek Into Darkness, Sherlock Holmes: A Game of Shadows.
So are we going to see another MCU movie pass this billion-dollar threshold anytime soon or at all?
I would be surprised if Wakanda Forever did not pull $1 billion, just because everybody loved the first one. It was incredibly leggy, which means people discovered it long after opening weekend. It was, I believe, and this is anecdotal, I don't know if this is, I have heard that it was the most not watched movie on Netflix in 2018, back when Netflix had the rights to the Disney Marvel movies. Um, so there's plenty of people that loved Black Panther in 2018 and have spent the last 4 years waiting for a sequel. The unfortunate death of Chadwick Boseman creates a certain newsworthiness that makes it more than just a big sequel to a big blockbuster, in the same way that the death of Heath Ledger and the death of Paul Walker made respectively The Dark Knight and Furious 7 more explicitly newsworthy events. Um, Now, that being said, it is entirely possible that Wakanda Forever could take a normal sequel dive and only make as much as, say, only make as much as 905 million worldwide, because you won't have China, you might not have Russia, and that level of drop would be equal to what happened with Jurassic World versus Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. Fallen Kingdom made 1.3 billion worldwide versus Jurassic World, which made 1.67 billion worldwide. You take that equal level of a drop, you take out China, you take out Russia, versus Black Panther, which made $1.346 billion, and you have 905 million worldwide. If that happens, I do not want to hear any mumbo jumbo about, Black Panther is a disappointment because it only made $900 million.
Because that's a success anywhere else.
Any rational standard, that's a success. Look, as far as the whole Marvel in trouble shenanigans, if Wakanda Forever only makes $600 million, then you can panic. If Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 makes $600 million, then you can panic. Otherwise, these films are performing basically up to par.